Hi everyone, my name is Hajera. I'm a fiction writer and I work as a writing coach and a freelance editor. I'm also one of the teachers who will be teaching a story intensive class this year, which I'm really excited about. And I'm taking over the Sarah Selecki Writing School Instagram account today just to talk to you a little bit about my experiences both as a student with the story intensive and as a teacher. So stay tuned and I'll be sharing some stories throughout the day. So my experience with the writing school started a very long time ago with Sarah's short story collection, This Cake is for the Party. I think it was 2010, and I was at Word on the Street in Toronto. For those of you who live in Canada and in Toronto know what that is. And I found her book there. I had never heard of Sarah before, and in the bio it said that she taught creative writing in her living room for the past 10 years and that she lived in Toronto. So I looked her up right away, and I think that was soon after Sarah had launched the story course, which was called Story as a State of Mind back then. So I signed up for her newsletter and I started following her online, and eventually I took the story course, and I did much of the course on my own, and I actually had a fairly good writing practice and writing routine. But then I got to a point where I really wanted some feedback on my writing. I felt like I was stalling, and I really needed some more feedback and someone to sort of push me in the right direction and say, you're doing this really well and you need to work on this a little bit more, that sort of thing. I had taken some writing courses prior to that, but I didn't really have a very good experience with them. And I loved the story course, so that really pushed me to sign up for the intensive and to believe even before I went into it that this would be something different. I took the story intensive in 2015, so about 6 years ago, and then last year I returned to the school as a teacher for the story intensive. And my experience both those times really showed me that what I loved the most about this program is how holistic it is. We have a lot of discussions on the craft of writing, but we also spend an equal amount of time talking about writing process and everything else that pertains to being a writer. Even the anxiety of calling oneself a writer, which is something I struggled with for a very long time. Self-doubt, how to have a healthy writing practice, how to balance writing with everything else that's going on in our life. And we have all of these very rich discussions alongside very rich discussions on craft. And that was something that I hadn't experienced before personally in any writing class or writing program that I had taken. Even with writing books, there's usually a separation between books that are sort of focused on motivation and getting you to write and getting over your own self-doubt and internal criticisms, and then there's books on craft. But this program, I feel, combines the best of both of those worlds. So one meaningful insight that I had, both, and I still remember this from 6 years ago when I was a student, and then saw it again last year when I was a teacher, is just how much our writing and our writer selves can thrive when we're in an environment that's really marked by kindness and encouragement. And I find that's happening more and more, and a lot of writing teachers and writers are recognizing that now. But even just a few years ago, a lot of workshops were just focused on critique, just focused on telling the writer, looking at your story and saying, well, you need to do this to fix this part, and you need to do this to fix this part, and not necessarily offering a lot of encouragement and motivation to keep going. And I don't mean that in a fluffy way, because we do learn craft in the story intensive. It's very craft focused. But in giving feedback to each other, we're very kind and we are very encouraging. And Sarah sort of gives a gardening analogy to this, that when we're first starting out, we need to really help the plants grow, help our writing grow, and help our writer selves thrive. So we focus on offering sunlight and offering water to our writing plants and giving enough fertilizer to make sure that our writing gardens can grow. And it was really eye-opening for me as a student to realize that this is what was missing in the courses that I had taken before and the workshops that I had taken before, was that I always felt scared almost and stifled when my work was being read by others, because the focus is always on what are they going to say about my writing and what I need to work on more. But in the intensive, we start out with giving a lot of feedback to let writers know where we see energy in their writing and where their writing is really sparkling. And that really helps us to have confidence in ourselves that we are good writers and we ourselves can recognize where energy and emotion is in our writing. So when I took the story intensive, I came to it wanting to learn more about craft and wanting to understand how to write stronger stories. And that's something that I relearned last year again when I was a teacher. And I think that's because one of the things this program does really well is to help us to read actively as opposed to passively. So when we're going through the stories in the course pack, we read them very closely to try to figure out what it is that the writer is doing. And that's a skill that I learned at the intensive, which I continue to apply in my own work. Now I can, read a story and then go through it and read it very closely to see what it is the writer is doing that I love, and how is it that they're doing it, and then how can I take that to my own writing and apply those same techniques to my own writing. And when I say that I relearned the skill as a teacher, that's because some of the teachers assign optional additional readings for some of the lessons. And that was my task last time. So what I had to do now is go through some of the stories that I loved, but from a slightly different perspective of not thinking about what works, but what's the strongest feature of this story and which lesson can I fit it into. And it really solidified all of the lessons for me like a second time around and in a completely different way. And that's something that I realized happens also when we give feedback to each other in the intensive. We look closely at each other's writings and then watch out for what the strongest feature of that writing is and where that writing really sparkles. So that's a skill that you'll learn not just in giving feedback, but also in reading all of the stories closely and learning to recognize what's really strong about the story and what's working, and then how can you take that and apply it into your own work, which is a really, really valuable skill to have as you start to write your own stories and start to grow as a writer and learn all these amazing skills and grow in your craft. The thing that I love about the story intensive community is how amazing all of the teachers are, how much knowledge they bring, and just the breadth of the kind of writing that everybody does. When as a teacher we have biweekly Zoom calls to talk about the struggles that our students are facing and how we can help them. So you as a student, you don't just have access to your teacher and their unique approach, but behind the scenes you're also getting a lot of the wealth of information and experience that all the other teachers are bringing, because we're always talking to each other all the time and helping each other out in how to make this a really great experience for our students and how to help them get over any humps that they sort of experience as well. So like I mentioned, last year was my first year of teaching the intensive, and one of the most unexpected things that came out of that experience was how much I enjoyed teaching, how much I loved it. And I've been reflecting on why that is, and I think it's because it reminded me of how much I had needed a program like this when I was sort of starting out and kind of just had started out and just went through a few writing courses but didn't really find that they worked for me. And I was able to see myself in all of the students that I taught last year. I can recognize myself in the students who are just starting out and who are really nervous and want to write and long to write but don't know where to start or just don't know how to start. And then we had some more advanced students who had been writing for a while, but they're at this phase in their writing life where they want some feedback and they want to learn more and they want to develop their craft. And it just reminded me of my younger writer self, and how valuable this program can be for you as a writer, and how much it can help you grow as a writer, and to now be there for students on the other side as a teacher, and be a partner with them in their writing journey was just really special and really valuable, and I really look forward to teaching again this year. So I think the Story Intensive is for anyone who wants to write. Whether you're a complete beginner who's never written before and you want to write, or you're someone who's very advanced and you've even published stories, you can still benefit from the Story Intensive, because we focus on, I think, equal parts craft and equal parts writing life. It is a very immersive program. It is an intensive program. So as long as you have the time to dedicate to your writing, and you're committed to putting that time aside and to working on your writing, the course will work for you. So I think Sarah says it's about 10 hours per week. And that time doesn't necessarily have to be at the same time that all the other students in your classroom are participating. But you do need to have that time, and to be able to commit that time to your writing, to showing up to do the lessons, doing the assignments, commenting on in the discussion boards, and giving feedback to your peers. It's a very rich program, and you will get a lot out of it. So as long as you're committed and you want to write, and you will be able to make the time to write, the Story Intensive is for you. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining along. I will be back on Friday to do an Instagram Live with Sarah. So that's this Friday, May 21st. And I will see you then. We'll talk a little bit more about the Story Intensive. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I will see you there. Thank you so much again. Bye.